Throughout the thousands of years of human history, there has been an enemy that cannot be destroyed. It seems invisible but is the cause of death for billions. They are bacteria, tiny organisms that exist everywhere, even inside our bodies. They are small but can strike fear into all of humanity. There was a time when a mild cough, a prolonged fever, or a bout of diarrhea meant counting down the final days of life. Then penicillin appeared, and humanity held in its hands a weapon, strong enough to challenge the microscopic killers that had claimed millions of lives each year. People called it a miracle, as antibiotics saved countless lives, raised the average lifespan, and ushered in a new era of medicine. But what happens when the miracle is overused? We are witnessing a silent but dangerous counterattack as antibiotic-resistant bacteria emerge. Soon we could again see more than 1 million people die every year from infections that antibiotics can no longer treat. Welcome to Dreamy Nights, where we will explore bacteria and the abyss of crisis caused by antibiotic resistance. No matter how far science advances, the laws of nature will still force humanity to struggle against killers that are just 1/100th the width of a human hair. If you are interested in this content and want to support Spider Room, click on the featured products linked in this video. But for now, let's dive into the video. Bacteria have existed since the dawn of life. They are so small, just 1% of the thickness of a human hair, and they are everywhere: in the air, in drinking water, in food, on your computer screen, and on the phone you are using to watch this video. Inside your body, there are more bacteria than the cells that make up your body, and the total biomass of bacteria is more than 1,000 times that of humans. Bacteria exist from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountain peaks, from the most arid deserts to the coldest tundras. They are the most resilient of all living things, considering geothermal vents their home, treating radiation hundreds of times stronger than humans can endure as child's play, and seeing alcohol as nothing more than a slightly chlorinated swimming pool. Fortunately, less than 1% of all bacteria are harmful, the ones that kill like butchers. Almost all of medical history can be summed up as a battle against this 1% of harmful bacteria. In the pre-antibiotic era, before the 20th century, most deaths in the world were caused by infectious diseases. The average human lifespan was only 47 years, when 46 for men and 48 for women. And even after the Industrial Revolution and the beginning of industrialization, this life expectancy did not improve. Infectious diseases such as plague, smallpox, cholera, pneumonia, typhoid, tuberculosis, and syphilis caused terrifying pandemics, killing hundreds of millions throughout history. Even without the infamous diseases of the past, any foolish bacterium could still kill you. A small scratch could seal your fate once it penetrated the human body's first line of defense, the skin. Bacteria began to feast and multiply rapidly, which naturally triggered an immediate immune response to destroy them. However, these bacteria were also very good at resisting the relentless hunt, like certain bacilli and diplococci that create protective polysaccharide capsules for themselves. Staphylococcus aureus, for example, secretes proteins that disrupt and prevent the immune system from attacking. Even the tuberculosis bacterium is a master at hiding, capable of lurking inside macrophages in the lungs for decades, waiting for the right moment. When the immune system fails, it succumbs, allowing the bacteria to erode the patient's body, leading ultimately to an unavoidable death. At that time, medicine tried various treatments for infections, from herbs, bloodletting, leeches, mercury, to moldy bread, but none were very effective. A breakthrough occurred between 1850 and 1920 when medicine recognized bacteria and agreed that most human diseases were caused by them. However, there was still no treatment. Killing bacteria in a test tube was easy, but destroying them without harming the patient was the real challenge. The breakthrough came in 1928, when penicillin was discovered by a Scottish biologist named Alexander Fleming. Fleming was a passionate and meticulous researcher who would keep old bacterial cultures until he was certain they yielded nothing new. Before leaving for a 2-week summer vacation, Fleming forgot to clean up his lab, and upon returning he found some Petri dishes contaminated with mold. The mold had killed the bacteria on those dishes, and that mold was a type of penicillium that grows on bread and in damp buildings. In its competition with bacteria, the mold secreted penicillin to eliminate its rivals. Penicillin works by preventing bacteria from forming stable cell walls, making them vulnerable to osmotic pressure and eventually causing them to burst from absorbing too much water, similar to how an overinflated balloon explodes. Although this method did not kill all harmful bacteria, it did eliminate a significant portion. Later, in 1940, two scientists named Howard Florey and Ernst Chain rediscovered Fleming's forgotten study. After 3 years of technical challenges and personality conflicts, their team managed to extract enough penicillin for animal testing. Of 8 mice infected with streptococci, only the 4 treated with penicillin survived. Despite the research attracting considerable attention, production capacity was still severely limited. From dozens of kilograms of Penicillium notatum, only a few grams of pure penicillin could be extracted, and the team even had to recover penicillin from patients. Britain's overstretched pharmaceutical industry at the time could not meet the conditions for mass production. In 1941, Florey decided to take penicillin to the United States in search of opportunities, and it was there that the real turning point occurred. A new strain of Penicillium notatum that produced 6 times more penicillin than Fleming's original strain was isolated from a rotting cantaloupe found in a market. The use of corn steep liquor, a nutrient-rich byproduct from soaking corn to extract starch, along with new cultivation techniques, further increased production efficiency, ushering in the golden age of antibiotics. Penicillin quickly saved millions of lives and was regarded as a miracle. At the end of the 1940s and 1950s, this marked the beginning of the golden age of antibiotics, which lasted from the 1940s to the mid-1960s. During this period, intensive research on natural and synthetic compounds led to the rapid development of many new antibiotics. Dozens of new antibiotics were discovered, including tetracycline, cephalexin, vancomycin, and colistin. By the 1970s, the rate of discovering new antibiotics slowed significantly, and in the more than half a century since then, only 8 new antibiotics have been found. One of the reasons for the rapid rise and decline of this golden age was the shift in production priorities of major pharmaceutical companies. They turned to focus on treatments for chronic diseases that were more profitable and provided stable, long-term revenue compared to antibiotics, which were usually used for a short time and sold at low prices. Moreover, it seems that nature has yielded fewer groundbreaking ideas over time. Efforts to find new antibiotics often returned compounds that had been known for a long time. Bacteria have fought back. Although antibiotics have saved billions of lives worldwide, they are not a perfect weapon. Antibiotics are tiny assassins, each with a specific mechanism to kill bacteria. Some prevent bacterial reproduction, others stop protein synthesis, and some attack their cell walls, among other methods. After completing their task, the assassins are eliminated from the body. The principle of using antibiotics is to eradicate the enemy completely, meaning the last pill in the course must kill the last invader. If even one enemy survives, everything returns to the beginning, except this time the situation is worse because the bacteria have become resistant to antibiotics. Bacteria reproduce by cloning themselves, essentially copying and pasting themselves repeatedly. Before bacteria can divide, they need to create 2 identical copies of their DNA chromosomes, one for each new cell. However, not every copy is perfect. Errors can occur, causing random mutations in the bacterial offspring. Some may die from fatal errors, produce extra proteins, or become something strange and different. On average, the mutation rate in bacteria is relatively low, occurring in only 1 out of 100,000 to 1 out of 1,000,000 bacteria. But the problem is that bacteria reproduce incredibly fast, once every 20 minutes, and they never stop. After a single night's sleep of 7 hours, 1,000 bacteria can become 2.1 billion bacteria, so they never run out of mutations. Among those 2.1 billion, there will be at least 200 mutants. Regardless of the mutation, they are not given any special advantages. Mutant or not, each individual bacterium faces 2 threats: the immune system actively hunting them down, and competition from other bacteria that are fighting for the same resources. With limited space and exponential population growth, it is not an ideal environment even for their ordinary relatives, let alone mutant bacteria. In the pre-antibiotic era, bacteria had only two fates. Either they were completely eliminated by the immune system, or they died with their host in the grave. Even if they spread to other people, they were trapped in the same endless cycle. Now let's look at an illustrative example in modern times. Tom began experiencing symptoms such as severe coughing and shortness of breath. He went to the doctor and was diagnosed with disease X. He was prescribed 2 packs of antibiotic Y to be taken continuously for 6 days, 2 tablets a day. Antibiotic Y works by attacking and puncturing the bacterial cell wall, killing them. At that time, there were around 15 million bacteria calling Tom's throat their home sweet home. Among them were dozens of random mutants. But attention should be paid to those particular bacteria that, for some reason, developed an unusually thick shell that made it difficult for the medicine to work. During the first 2 days of taking the antibiotic, the initial tablets combined with the immune system eliminated 27% of the total bacteria. The thick-shelled bacteria, along with the survivors, continued to reproduce. By the 3rd and 4th days, with fewer bacteria left, the combined forces of the antibiotic and the immune system managed to kill off 50% of the remaining bacteria and started to target the thick-shelled mutants. These mutants were not killed by a single attack, so they and the remaining normal bacteria continued to reproduce. By the 5th day, the overwhelming firepower and manpower of the antibiotic forces increased, and the bacteria were completely surrounded. The thick-shelled mutants and the normal bacteria were all gradually exterminated without mercy by the combined power of the antibiotic and the immune system. The thick-shelled bacteria also gradually met the same fate as they were, repeatedly attacked and killed in large numbers. By the end of the day, the bacterial population had been wiped out, leaving only a small group of thick-shelled bacteria that had been severely weakened and barely held on. However, their time was up. The next waves of antibiotics would continue, to come on the 6th and final day to finish them off completely. But Tom did not think that way. Because the bacteria had been exhausted by constant battles, his symptoms had almost disappeared. Believing that he was cured, Tom threw the remaining antibiotic pills from the prescription aside. Now in Tom's throat, there was only a group of thick-shelled bacteria. All their unlucky relatives that once competed with them had vanished, and the immune system had lost an important ally and could not destroy them in time. All the antibiotics that Tom had taken turned out to be like a carpet bombing campaign that cleared the way for these bacteria. They were no longer hindered and could freely multiply, forming a superpopulation of millions of thick-shelled bacteria. And so Tom was reinfected with disease X. If that were all, it would not be too worrying, because even if someone made the same mistake 2 or 3 more times, helping bacteria develop super thick shells through natural selection, they could still use stronger antibiotics or higher doses. However, these cunning bacteria have another trick. They can transfer their thick-shell DNA to other bacteria they encounter through a process called horizontal gene transfer, or HGT. HGT can occur through various pathways, such as transformation, where bacteria absorb genetic material from the environment, transduction. When a virus infects a bacterium and may carry that bacterium's DNA to the next bacterium it infects, similar to pollination in insects. But the most common pathway is conjugation, where one bacterium gives another its plasmid via a structure called a pilus. Now there are not just one but many types of bacteria with thick shells. Thus the cycle continues. The first bacterium infects someone, uses antibiotics to select for high survival mutations, then horizontally transfers its genes to many other bacteria. Gradually, these superbugs accumulate resistance to many antibiotics. A process gradually forms within the body of a person that can no longer be traced, as any AI could potentially become a host for superbugs. Thus, antibiotic resistance begins with a random error in bacteria and ends with human subjectivity and overconfidence. Such scenarios have existed since the dawn of antibiotics. Sulfonamide antibiotics began to be distributed and systematically used in 1935. Hand resistance emerged in 1938. By 1940, penicillin resistance in bacteria was observed. By 1948, Staphylococcus bacteria had widely developed resistance to penicillin. In 1959, methicillin was developed to combat penicillin-resistant staph, but only a year later, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus appeared. That same year, strains of Enterococci acquired resistance to terracycline, an antibiotic discovered 9 years earlier. Vancomycin was developed in 1972, and 16 years later, vancomycin-resistant Enterococci emerged. Daptomycin was developed in 2003, but only a year later. Cases of resistance in Staphylococcus aureus and Enterococci were reported. Ceftaroline was developed in 2010, but resistant Staphylococcus strains appeared as early as 2011. Currently, more than 1 million people die each year due to antibiotic-resistant bacteria that leave doctors helpless. In 2019 alone, about 1.2 million people died globally due to antibiotic resistance. This does not mean that humanity has completely surrendered to bacteria. We are still constantly researching new antibiotics, but this is an uneven race. Humanity is like a bicycle, while bacteria are like a racing car. It can take humans nearly 100,000 hours and up to $1 billion to develop a new antibiotic, while a single bacterial reproduction cycle takes less than 20 minutes. In fact, since the 1970s, we have struggled to find new antibiotics because we have already explored every nook and cranny of the world. Many new antibiotics today are essentially upgraded versions of older drugs. For example, Augmentin is just amoxicillin combined with clavulanic acid to inhibit the production of beta-lactamase, an enzyme that allows bacteria to neutralize beta-lactam antibiotics. For antibiotics like Zerbaxa, combine ceftolozane with tazobactam, a beta-lactamase inhibitor. Even Zenlita, the trade name for lefamulin, an antibiotic for treating community-acquired pneumonia, is a repurposed veterinary antibiotic. Meanwhile, doctors have had to switch to using last-resort antibiotics, which are drugs that had been set aside to fight the most resistant bacteria. These are often administered simultaneously in combination therapy to ensure that all bacteria are eliminated. However, this is a last resort solution because these antibiotics, like malfunctioning killer robots from movies, destroy almost everything in their path, including both harmful and beneficial bacteria. This is a serious side effect. Some antibiotics are so dangerous that doctors would never use them unless absolutely necessary. Fluoroquinolones are a typical example, with side effects including tendon rupture, neurological complications like hallucinations, seizures, and arrhythmias. Aminoglycosides can even cause kidney failure and deafness, while doctors, researchers, and scientists continue to struggle to keep up. Before the splitting of bamboo by bacteria in humans, bacteria had already launched a massive new offensive targeting animals, especially livestock and poultry. You know, bacteria and diseases are the most troublesome things for farmers who have to watch entire herds they have worked so hard and invested so much in die-off and massa. True disaster. Clearly, farmers cannot scrub each animal individually or keep each one in a spacious, airy enclosure with 100% high-quality feed. Therefore, they pour tons of antibiotics into animal feed. In fact, the livestock industry uses up to 70% of all antibiotics used worldwide, more than double the amount used by humans. However, in some cases, the antibiotics given to animals are insufficient, leading to antibiotic resistance. Combined with unsanitary conditions in cramped enclosures, this creates a terrifying rate of spread. It has happened, is happening, and will continue to happen. Moreover, the overuse of antibiotics in livestock also causes environmental pollution and negatively affects consumer health. The solution is clear. On all fronts, bacteria are gaining the upper hand. After being surprised for a while, they have come back stronger than ever. So what should we do? Stop taking antibiotics altogether so there are no antibiotic-resistant bacteria anymore? Of course not. We cannot deny the benefits of these medical advances. Instead, we should limit the use of antibiotics. There are many simple and effective ways to boost the immune system, such as exercising, getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, and practicing good personal hygiene. Instead of relying on external help whenever attacked, why don't we build our own first line of defense? The toughest opponent to the mission of fighting antibiotic resistance is economic interest. For example, instead of investing in cleaner barns, better waste management systems, and better animal husbandry conditions, companies simply flood their animals with antibiotics as an easy and cheap solution. They have also discovered that giving low doses of antibiotics to livestock and poultry not only keeps them from getting sick, but also accelerates their growth rates. This is yet another reason to abuse antibiotics. Therefore, only take antibiotics when truly necessary, and always follow the doctor's prescription and guidance after clinical and paraclinical examination, such as reviewing medical history and looking at symptoms or X-rays. The doctor will prescribe one or several broad-spectrum antibiotics to strike a comprehensive blow, aimed at eliminating all suspected bacteria. This approach is called empirical therapy, with doses prescribed according to medical standards, though sometimes the standard is wrong. You may not take a full dose but still recover completely, or if the bacteria exceed the standard, they will rebound and strike back. Worse, there are cases where antibiotics inadvertently impact some harmful bacteria lurking in your body, but only lightly, like having your ears ring from a bomb explosion while the others are blown to bits. Then, after the next explosion, those bacteria have learned to plug their ears. In short, antibiotics have been and are on track to become one of the biggest threats to humanity, especially to the poorer parts of the world where people lack access to clean water and basic healthcare. Bacteria know no borders, races, or genders, but you can help simply by not tossing half-finished antibiotic blister packs in the drawer after reading sensational Facebook news that antibiotics are bad for the liver. The most important thing is to always listen to your doctor, because the doctor definitely has more expertise than your own heart. You will not regret following the prescribed medication.